Welcome to another episode of the Lightspeed Investing Podcast. Today we have our very esteemed guest, Dr. Jeffrey, back at it again. He is the CEO of Spinal Kinetics and the founder of Smart Injury Doctors. Having been a licensed doctor of chiropractor for the last 33 years, he has developed AI for spinal instability evaluations, and he is here to talk with us today about how physicians can garner more income for their practice. Dr. Jeffrey, welcome and happy to see you again.
Hey, thanks. Good to be back with you.
Likewise, man. So what do you got for our audience today? You know, we were speaking briefly and you had talked about some new developments, right, that you're doing in India, which is super exciting. But more importantly, there is a resource that all doctors can leverage to boost their income ceiling, especially with their medical practice.
Yeah, so obviously, on your podcast, and what your group is about investing and developing more streams of income for doctors, so they make their life easier, so that basically they can start to have their income investments actually pay more to them than their what they get paid to be in practice, so they can fully be in practice and be fully free to do whatever they want to do and not be contained within their practice. When we talk about that, especially when I'm talking to doctors who are looking at the injury space. So what I'm going to talk about is for doctors that are in the spinal injury space. That could be chiropractors, that could be medical doctors, that could be surgeons, that could be pain management specialists, those doctors.
Right.
When you look at the injury space in a practice, it's a very lucrative space. Doctors make very good money if you can get good results with injuries. So that's why I spend so much time in the injury space. Now, I spend so much time, Philip, in that space because everything we do is geared toward helping doctors to get better results with those patients.
Right.
And so, it's just a very lucrative part. If you looked at your practice as a vehicle and you said, hey, I got Medicare, I got general insurance, I got cash, and I got injury work, and each one is a vehicle. Medicare is a mini bike. General insurance today is, a 250cc motorcycle. If you wanted to go cash, you're getting the stem cells and things like that. That may be a little bit faster vehicle, but the injury space, that's where the jet is, or that's where you can seriously take off as far as, generating income into your practices.
So that's an obvious, no-brainer, right? When you break it down and categorize it that way. The next logical question is how so and why so?
Well, when you say how so, the how so is depending on, so today, most physicians that are in practice are limited by what they can earn or what they can generate based on the insurance.
Right.
So if I have Medicare, this is what I can get paid. I can bill $1,000, but if Medicare is only going to pay me 80, then it doesn't matter if I billed 1,000. 80 is what I'm going to get paid. Mm-hmm. Insurance is the same way with preferred provider organizations and different organizations. I can bill what I want to, but I'm only going to get paid so much. Mm-hmm. Not in the injury space. Whatever I bill, that's what I get paid. So it's vastly different. There aren't those limits that are in the other categories are not there in the injury space. That doesn't mean that the person should gouge the space or overcharge or anything else. But those reductions that you take in those other areas are not there in the injury space.
I see. Wow, that's totally amazing. And, for you, what has been, I guess, the most life-changing aspects having included, this in your own practice?
Well, in my own practice or a typical chiropractic practice, for every 10 injury patients that I see, I need 50 other type patients to generate the same amount of income.
Mm.
So, if I look at that and I can say, okay, well, I can either treat 50 for the 10, or I can take the 10, create that into 50 and generate, I'm doing just as much work, right, but I'm generating significantly more income.
So it's a huge form of leverage, right? As we talk about in investing, you want to look at three segments. What is your barrier to entry or initial investment required, the runway, and the ROI? In this case, what I'm hearing is, you can do less, you can do more with less, right? You're accomplishing the same results with 10 patients as opposed to 50 patients, which is amazing. And then on top of that, you had mentioned to me, during our backstage discussion that this allows you to be more scalable, right? From the perspective of you are no longer the brand, the practice is the brand. Do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, that's really huge. It's really huge for any doctor. Basically, most doctors make the mistake. I did too. I did too. For the first 8 years of my private practice, I was the person. Oh my gosh. So the person came in, I fixed this, I fixed that. And it didn't matter what my clinic was called. I could not get away from that practice because if I brought other people in, people still wanted to only see me. So the doctor's jail is when the doctor becomes the brand. In the injury space and injury recovery, especially where you're doing, repetitive services to help the person rehabilitate, the clinic becomes the brand and not the doctor.
Right.
So I can put a doctor, I can put an associate doctor in my place, and the patient doesn't care in the injury space. In the other space, totally different.
Mm.
So it allows me to scale. It allows me to systemize my practice more. It allows me to build, I can put more people in place. I can build more practices if I want to. And today, larger companies are buying up injury practices.
I
So
see.
they're very sellable if the person wanted to sell the practice.
So what does that, roadmap look like? Let's say I hear this and I'm like, all right, interested to learn more. I want to implement it. But hey, Dr. Jeffrey, I'm a busy neurologist. I'm a busy surgeon, whatever, right? And I've got all these moving parts going on. So how am I going to take time out of my day to learn and implement? I mean, what do you have to say about, these comments?
Yeah. So first of all, let's start with the chiropractor. Let's start with the chiropractor that wants to
Oh,
get involved. Let's
okay.
start with that chiropractor. The neuros and the orthos, it's a little bit different situation because the neuros and orthos usually have people that'll go out and market and do various things for them.
I see. So why don't we, how about we do it this way? Who is this conversation for and who is this not for?
Well, it's for anybody in the injury space, but let's start with the most the doctors. I'm going to start with the chiropractors.
Okay, let's talk
So
about
for the chiropractor.
all right.
So your question is, hey, how do they get involved with it, or how do they start with it?
Yeah, what's the roadmap look like, right? Like what is the beginning to, end in terms of learning and implementation?
Same. Okay, good. So it's the same with any business, right? So you decide, okay, this is an area I want to get into. The best thing you can do is find somebody who's already gone in that area. They've already expanded into that area. If you can find a consultant and you can find somebody that you can connect with that can say, okay, here's how you do it, and here's how you expand quickly. That's my biggest advice to anybody, regardless.
Okay. So
Is to
that
look,
would be the right mentorship, so to speak.
yeah, get in with the right mentor. Is it time consuming? No, it's no more time consuming than being in business, period, is period. I mean, if you're going to be in business and you're like, I don't know about you, but in my practices, I would work 60 or 70 hours a week. Most doctors do. But then there comes a point where you're busy and then you say, okay, well, how can if 40 patients are the same as 10, then how do I get that 10 to multiply to 40 and the 40 are no
Yeah.
longer in there?
Right.
If I'm going to, so
Sure.
it's making that decision to do
So
that.
then, and from an initial learning curve standpoint, how much time are they looking at? Right? 3 hours a day, 3 hours a week.
It's when you say that right now, let's say I'm in a clinic and I'm in the clinic 35 hours a week.
Mhm.
Okay. It takes no more time than the 30 to 35 hours. So there's dead space, there's dead time. In our program called the Smart Injury Doctors Program, we have an online training program that teaches doctors about the spinal injuries themselves. That program, that total program for you to learn about these injuries and what I say to say about them is 4.5 hours.
I see.
So
And
you
it's
go,
online,
okay,
basically.
it's online. We have coaching that comes with it. And once you understand that, then it becomes, okay, now how do I market, or how do I take that information and how do I get it so that people desire my services? How do I go out to professionals, to other neurologists, orthopedists, or attorneys, and get them to start referral relationships with me?
And should this be a conversation for more established chiropractors, or can this work for beginning chiropractors? Like, what would you say the revenue range
Yeah,
is?
so just to kind of give you an idea on the chiropractic side, we work with chiropractors that are seeing 800 new injury patients a month. That's a practice that's going to generate somewhere between 40 and 60 million dollars, down to just brand new students that are just out of school that want to get into the injury space because they know that's a more lucrative space, and they're smart enough in their businesses to say, okay, this is where I want to go. So it's anywhere in between.
Nice. Okay. And then what about the people who, after listening, right, you're like, hey, this is probably not the right fit for you.
Well, if you're not interested in injury work, the injury work comes with a medical legal aspect of things. A lot of doctors don't like the medical legal aspect. They don't like the, hey, I'm going to be deposed, or I gotta, show up in court and testify. They don't like that medical legal aspect. They
Right.
don't like working with attorneys. So if you don't want to work with attorneys, you don't like the medical legal aspect, it's fine. Now, the cool part about that is that's a barrier of entry. Right now, I love when I was in the injury space, I wanted 99% of the doctors not to want to have to work in that space because they were afraid of it, or they didn't understand it, or it's the easiest thing. But for some doctors, it's a very scary thing. So it creates a barrier of entry, which for those of us that are in that market just means, okay, you just took yourself out of the market.
Yeah, blue ocean, right, for you, and you get to basically carve out your own territory because you're willing to do what the competition won't do. And actually, I'm glad that you brought up that point. If my memory serves me, you are actually not just a doctor of chiropractor, you are a JD, an attorney as well, correct?
Yes, I have a law degree as well. I got a law degree in 2014. That's correct.
And your law degree is specifically in.
Well, it was specific to tort law or injury law.
There you go.
Right.
So if you're listening, right? You have Dr. Jeffrey here. Look, obviously, you're welcome to traverse the internet, traverse your local, chiropractor associations and clinics, and see who will be a good mentor for you. But Dr. Jeffrey is a great two-in-one in him being both a DC and JD.
Yeah, and we also, not only do I teach doctors, but I also teach lawyers, because lawyers in the personal injury space, it's the only space where lawyers do not learn about the condition that they represent. So if you're in the legal space and you have contract law, right? They spend all their weekends learning everything there is to know, geeking out on contracts, right? If you're in divorce law, you spend all your weekends figuring out family law, how people hide their money and what do they do with it? How do the financial institutions work with it? In personal injury, that's the only area of law where attorneys do not generally study the condition that they represent. So they don't know a lot about the condition, the physical condition that they're representing.
Because they're not a DC themselves.
Well, yeah, they think that way, but here's the problem with that thought, and that is the way they think. The problem with that thought, and it's kind of can be perceived as a bad analogy, but if I'm selling cars, okay, I can't say, hey, the features of these cars is all in this manual. Just read the manual. Please just give me $100,000, because everything you need to know is in this manual.
All right.
Personal injury attorneys say, I don't really need to know the injuries. It's all in the doctor's notes. Just read the notes. This patient has been badly damaged, and look at the thing it has, the effect it has on their life. I want $100,000. So the good attorneys are generally the salespeople of the injury itself to the insurance industry. So the more they know about the features of the injuries, the better they are at selling those injuries.
Gotcha. Okay, fantastic. And so, in your case, you would be able to provide insights if you were talking to an attorney, not a chiropractor, right? How would they benefit from your knowledge and wisdom?
As far as an attorney?
Yeah, if they were an attorney and they were.
Well, no different than the analogy. Hey, look, if the guy that is actually selling this car knows the ins and outs of all the features of the car and can actually judge the person that they're selling, and what is going to be the go button on that feature, their sales are going to be through the roof. So the other thing is, once you understand the injuries, you can systemize your law practice more to say, okay, here's the triage of what I need to know. Do we have this? Do we have this? We don't have that. Why don't we have that? Any paralegal now can go out and say, hey, what about this? The patient hasn't had an MRI. The patient hasn't had this x-ray test. Do you think this would be a good idea or not? Do you think this injury's here or not? Because right now, even if it's there, we don't have any objective evidence of it.
So basically, for attorneys that deals with legal law, right? Or sorry, injury law.
Yeah, any kind of injury law.
No injury laws. It would be wise of them to also have a conversation with you, because by learning more about the inherent medical conditions, it allows them to be more articulate in their communication, which usually leads to better conversions and revenue coming to the firm, right?
Much better. Yes. Yep.
Awesome. Well, you got a powerful two-in-one here through Dr. Jeffrey, and it's been amazing learning about this new development right in the injury space. I myself was an aspiring surgeon looking to get into sports medicine, so I love talking about this topic. And just so the listeners know, right, you have this medical training, professionally speaking, but as an athlete, what is your background? Because we also had a good conversation about that to give them.
Yeah, you and I were talking about it. I played all the way up college baseball, college basketball. I played high school football, state champions, high school football, and I played college rugby, and I played right up to, in the United States, the highest level of rugby is the United States Eagles, which is the representative side rugby. I played right up to that level. So yeah, I had a lot of sports, did a lot of sports.
And was that the reason, part of the reason why you went into, becoming a DC, doctor of chiropractor, because of your sports affiliations and maybe
No,
injuries that you incurred?
actually, yeah, I don't get asked that question very often, and everybody's got their own story. But for me, I had an uncle that was a chiropractor, and he was the happiest person in my family, and was the happiest person that I knew. He loved what he did. He
Wow,
loved helping people, and he was just always so happy, and he was noticeably happy. I was adjusted. He adjusted us our whole life. We were always treated with it.
I see.
And I was getting down to the point where sports was running out for me.
Sure.
And so I was needing to decide, okay, what do I really want to get into as far as a career? I was not a big drug guy. I looked at medicine. I wanted to help people. I looked at being a doctor. I was not a big drug guy. And so when I went back and looked at my uncle and looked at what chiropractic was, that's when I decided to become a chiropractor.
I love it, man. So with Dr. Jeffrey, you have someone who's happy, who is legal and medical all in one. Dr. Jeffrey, so glad to have you here again as a guest speaker. Thank you so much for your time. As a
Yes.
concluding, remark and comment to the audience, how can they get a hold of you? What is the best way to, move the conversation to the next level?
Yeah, if they wanted to find out more about me, first of all, you just Google search my name. You're going to see page after page after page after page of what I'm about. But if you want to get a hold of us, you just go to www.smartinjurydoctors or www.smartinjurylawyers.com or call us at 800-940-6513.
All righty. Either reach out at Smart Injury Doctors or Smart Injury Lawyers with the associated phone number, and you will be in touch with this all-in-one powerful package. Thank you again, Dr. Jeffrey, and I hope you have a blessed day.
Yeah, thanks, Philip.